Today is day 268 of the podcast, and I'm going to begin reading from Exodus chapter 20, verses 3 to 5. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol, or any likeness of what is in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the water under the earth. You shall not worship them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children, on the third and fourth generations of those who hate me. We're going to look at lesser loves today. Throughout Israel's history and God, they continued to return to the high places. Over and over again, we see this in the Old Testament, to install gods that they had made with their own hands to a pedestal of worship. So rivals for their heart, this residue from their time in Egypt, these idols were exalted right in the face of a holy, living God. Idolatry can only really be described as spiritual adultery. It began on the plains of Shinar. We see it on the plains of Shinar in the Old Testament in the book of Genesis, when the ideas of men carried out in their rebellious hearts, they joined together to build a tower, a place of worship that would reach and give them access to heaven. Listen to Genesis 11, verses 6 to 8. And the Lord said, behold, they are one people, they all have the same language, and this is what they began to do. And now nothing which they purpose to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down there and confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of the whole earth, and they stopped building the city. But that didn't mean they stopped building high places, because as the people were scattered, that which they valued and elevated in their heart, they took with them. So to walk in this kind of idolatry turns us from being led by the Spirit to taking direction from idols. I want us to consider what takes place in the book of Ezekiel. I'm going to read from chapter 14, verses 3 to 5, and he is describing the state of Israel during his day. And this is the spiritual leadership. Son of man, these men have set up their idols in their hearts and have put right before their faces the stumbling block of their iniquity. Should I be consulted by them at all? Therefore speak to them and tell them, thus says the Lord God. Any man of the house of Israel who sets up his idols in his heart, puts right before his face the stumbling block of his iniquity, and then comes to the prophet, I, the Lord, will be brought to give him an answer in the matter, in view of the multitude of his idols, in order to lay hold of the hearts of the house of Israel, who are estranged from me through all their idols. This prophecy, this command to Ezekiel, is spiritual leadership. If you're going to elevate idols, I'm going to allow you to hear and be led by those idols. It's a turning them over to the fullness of what they have elevated and worshiped in their heart. And what if we live in such a time? You look through the kings, and so many of the kings, though they attempted to obey God in part, it continually says that they left the high places alone. Only one king tore down the high places and thoroughly obeyed God. So here's today's question for us. How can you or we recognize the lesser things that have been elevated in our hearts, to the point that they are a rival to our relationship with the living God?